tenacity, her willingness to expand and learn, and just to love us through the process as we love her through this process. We appreciate you so much, so very much. Once upon a time, there were 4 people. Their names were everybody, somebody, nobody, and anybody. Whenever there was an important job to be done, everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. When nobody did it, everyone got angry because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought that somebody would do it, but nobody realized that nobody would do it. So consequently, everybody blamed somebody when nobody did anything that could have been done in the first place. I thought I would just start us out with a little humor this morning. This is an old story. I see a lot of heads nodding. It's been around for a while. And I just saw it recently and I go, this would be a nice setting for a segue into our discussion this morning. The topic being, none are free until all are free. Our current conversations, locally, nationally, and internationally, are inviting us to a heightened awareness that freedom is the birthright of every individual. Within our Centers for Spiritual Living, the conversations include a call to spiritual activism as one of the many ways to ensure that each individual experiences freedom. The question that I offer for our consideration is, are we listening to each other in order to respond, or are we listening to what is being said, both verbally and non-verbally? Are we open to investigating what another is saying, like 2 or more friends talking together and seeing things as they are? Recently in meditation, Spirit revealed this definition of spiritual activism to me. And what was revealed is the activity of Spirit calling for something within me that is moving me out of my comfort zone to express my life purpose. And so I invite each one of us that's hearing this talk today to ask yourself the question, what is calling me forward? What is calling me out of my comfort zone to express my life purpose? Joseph Campbell states it this way: opportunities to find deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems the most challenging. And aren't these some challenging times that we are living in, that we're living through, that we are experiencing and growing as a part of? My intention today is to offer some spiritual practices that support us in moving out of our internal comfort zone. You know, in Science of Mind, we use the expression treat and move your feet, pray and move your feet. And this is where we actually participate in the creative process along with Spirit to bring forth the demonstrations that we wish to see, to experience the change that we wish to see in the world. Using our eye of discernment, we identify our part in supporting all beings of freedom to fully express their spiritual beingness. The global vision for our Centers of Spiritual Living is a world that works for everyone and for all of creation. And so one way we share this vision of a world that works for everyone is to share the spiritual principles and teachings of Science of Mind with others, meeting them where they are in their life experiences and sharing the ways that we shifted our paradigms and our belief systems to create the experience of living free. An important step that is left out of this model is meeting ourselves where we are in consciousness first. This is where the work begins. For example, we may know individuals who are experiencing marginalization in many areas of their life. And we may want to create the feeling and the awareness of inclusiveness for them and for everyone. So the inner question we must ask is, what are the shackles of my fear-based belief system that I must investigate and release from my own mind before I can engage in the process of eliminating marginalization? What truth must I realize about myself? What are the ways I remind myself and my family and my friends that what is happening to me, what is happening to us, what is happening to any part of God is in some way happening to all of God? Nelson Mandela stated it this way: "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." It's like the old expression I grew up with in the South, and that is, one hand washes the other. And so as we go through these life experiences, we're washing our own hand, and at the same time, we're extending this cleansing process to the hands of others. For many of us, we recall our initial response after being introduced to the teachings of science of mind. And it's something like, "I have come home. This is a place that I always knew that existed in my heart." We felt liberated and comforted, knowing that heaven is not a destination to hang out in the after physical death, but heaven is actually a state of consciousness to be experienced here and now. And we remember the law of circulation, which mandates the basic human desire to experience freedom, justice, equality, peace, love, joy, and solace. And as we practice the law of circulation, we have a responsibility to ensure that circulation is fairly and equitably shared with everyone, to see each individual as one with spirit, to really practice and embody the first step of affirmative prayer. There is only one life. That life is God's life. To achieve inner freedom, we create our life one step at a time. It is up to each of us to learn to trust our inner guidance that lets us know the next step to take. To trust ourselves, we are called to discern the difference between our intuition and our fear. This takes practice. It requires reprogramming the subconscious mind to uncover our limiting beliefs about ourselves. Here's an example that I'd like to share with you. While updating some personal information on my computer, this reminder message popped up: "Keep software up to date." And the message read, "To protect yourself from security vulnerabilities, always use up-to-date software across your web browser, operating system, plugins, and document editions. When you receive notifications to update your software, do so as soon as possible." And so I offer you 3 examples of ways that we can update our spiritual software so that we are current in our practices, we are current in our belief system. And the first way is to seek ways to shine our light. As a young girl, Maya Angelou suffered a life of torment and darkness that nearly stole her voice forever. At a young age, she was forced to endure intense physical and emotional abuse by family members. As a result, she became mute for nearly 5 years. But with the help of a family friend, Angela found her voice once again. She was introduced to Dickens, Shakespeare, Poe, and other prolific writers who would influence her personal and professional philosophies, propelling her to become a conduit of love because one person raised her up. One person, just one person, can bring about a change. The second way is to see beyond conditions and appearances. And I love this story. Father Gregory Boyle, a Jesuit priest, has worked to counter gang activity for more than 30 years in Los Angeles. His mission, Homeboy Industries, has directed many hundreds away from gang and into productive lives by providing employment, tattoo removal, counseling, and love to low-risk youth. Often individuals bearing full facial tattoos come to him. And while it would be easy for Father Boyle to assess them based on appearances, he sees only God and works successfully to restore their dignity, inspiring many to do the same for their peers. And so the question we might ask ourselves again is, where am I called to look beyond the outer appearances of my life and embrace what I identify as my flaws and all, recognizing that each one of us right where we are a whole, perfect, and complete idea in the mind of God. A third way is to be humble in our work. Go about it quietly. The world will only benefit from what we do, not from how much we brag. When Jesus was approached by the leper asking to be made whole, Jesus cured him and instructed that leper to tell no one. Of course, the leper went around telling everyone about the miracle he experienced because of his excitement. But whether we see the leprosy as a physical disease or a spiritual void, it takes the walk, the example of Jesus, and not the talk. This is what mattered. What Jesus saw was neither a physical disease or a spiritual void. What Jesus saw was wholeness. And this is what our Science of Mind teaching calls us. This is what life calls us to be, is to see the wholeness of each individual, to know that each individual matters. And so I offer this call to action and some practical applications. And the first is a teaching from the Bible that says, love your neighbor as yourself. And I know there were points in Jesus's ministry where he was teaching and the disciples would often say, Master, this is a hard teaching. So love your neighbor as yourself may fall into that hard teaching category. There's a practical application, however, that is also offered in the Bible. And that is in the area of fear not. Fear not invites us to consider each day as a new beginning and a new learning opportunity. When we allow ourselves to make mistakes and missteps, we learn what freedom means for each of us individually. Going back to the phrase fear not appears 365 times in the Bible. And I heard this one suggestion that said, if we each took one verse, one fear not verse, and meditated on it each day, that we could live a year fearing not. And we could expand that into a lifetime. In our Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes refers to fear 47 times. And other spiritual teachers incorporate guidelines into overcoming fear. And so what I'm offering is that we find a spiritual teaching that works for us and that we work it. In other words, again, we have to treat and move our feet. The truth of who we are is love, and love is what sets us free. Ernest Holmes reminds us again in our textbook that we should cultivate an attitude of friendship towards everybody and everything. And again, going back to theory versus practice, Ernest Holmes offers this to us, and I'm paraphrasing. When we indulge in too much theory and too little practice, we block our actual demonstrations. And he also writes this in the textbook on page 440. When the law of circulation is retarded, stagnation results. And I love this statement from Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith in his book, Spiritual Liberation. And he writes, if you merely collect spiritual information without practicing it, all you will develop is a case of spiritual indigestion and constipation. Now that kind of nails it right on the head. So we're called to treat and move our feet. We're called to engage in our own self-assessment, our own self-evaluation, to acknowledge our own belief system. And when we engage in the conversations that we're being called for to participate in, we engage from a place of talking with each other as a friend and exploring what is truly happening right here and right now. And so it is in this freedom that we enjoy our connection with the divine. And we are invited to share and create a world where we are all free. And so I invite you to just join with me as we pray together. Just acknowledging the all-prevailing presence of spirit that is right here and right now. That all-prevailing presence is what I know as the one life, the one power, the one creative intelligence, the one place where there is harmony and love and joy and beauty and inclusion and peace. And all of the activities of God are contained in this one. I know that this is a place where I am unified with this creative intelligence, with this source. And as I accept this, as I embrace it, as I honor it for myself, I embrace it for everyone. Because each one is an individualized expression of pure spirit. We are the place where God shows up, individually as well as collectively. And so I give thanks for our time together this morning. I give thanks for this time to share. I give thanks for the revelation of spiritual activism, which is calling me from my own comfort zone to ask, what is mine to know, what is mine to be, and what is mine to do? And as I bless our time together, as I bless our spiritual community known as the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, which by the means of technology truly has become non-local. I also bless communities and spiritual centers and places where people are gathering in their awareness of the truth of the allness and the oneness of God, the Christ consciousness, the Aman, the Atman, the Buddha, whatever tradition it is. Because I know that this spiritual idea that I call God is known by many names, and yet it is beyond all names. I bless members of our community, our worldwide community, who have prayer requests within their hearts, knowing that the answer to the request is already yes. The universe responds to the cry of our heart. It responds to the joy of our heart. It responds to the excitement that is in our heart. It responds to the joyous expectations. It responds to the full range and the totality of who we are by always saying yes. So whatever the condition, whatever the seeming discomfort is, be encouraged and know that everything is happening at all times for our highest and best good. And so for this, and for so much more than I have words for, or I have ideas in my mind for in this very moment, I give thanks. And I release this prayer, I release this time, I release this service into the law, which always says yes. And I just allow it to be so. And I invite us to affirm this together by saying, and so it is. And then our affirmation for this morning that we take forth is the answer is always love. The answer is always love. Thank you.